Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leathercraft, and this is the Leather Element. If you've got a good question for us, or a good idea for a leather element, drop it in the comment box below. Bullet loops. We get a lot of questions and a lot of comments. Sounds like folks have trouble with these. Well, if you are, don't beat yourself up, because we got two problems. First off, we've got all kinds of diameters for bullets, from 22s all the way up to 12 gauge. Second biggest problem. So we're using a 4 to 5 ounce leather to make our actual loop. Well, if it's more towards the 4 ounce side or more towards the 5 ounce side, that's going to change our measurement completely. So what we'll do, let's look at 3 ways to attach our bullet loops. Then let's look at a good way to measure for these so we have a good tight fit every time. So let's step over here and get started. In my opinion, and only my opinion, I like to drop in a stitch line between each bullet loop. Now, that's very time consuming. But secondly, we've got to have very accurate measurements. Here's the outcome though. This belt, years old, it's been to all kinds of events. Look at that. That shell is still secure in that loop. That's what we're looking for. Now, we can always rivet. Simply drop in a rivet between each bullet. Now, 2 points to that. Right here, where I can get in 4 bullets, now I'm down to only 3. We've just got a lot of real estate between each bullet because we've got a rivet in there. But on that same point, when I get 15 or maybe 20 shells on a belt, that's a cowboy load, 45 cowboy load. I drop in a gun, a knife, a pouch, this belt is going to get ridiculous heavy. So therefore, not really a bad way to go, easy to measure, looks good. We can always go with an oblong. This is the way I've seen this done most often on production holsters. We're just going to drop in 1 oblong per shell. We're going to come out of that oblong, around our shell, and back through that oblong. So therefore, pretty clean, pretty tight, and again, very easy to measure. Doesn't look bad either. But when we jump up to a larger shell, say we get up to a 20 gauge or a 12 gauge, what's going to happen is this is going to stick so far off the face of our leather that it's going to start to wag around. Thus, it's going to get loose. It's not going to keep that shell in there. But for the most part, if we use 2 oblongs, well, that doesn't look bad. Now, if you want to go this route, let's step over to our main table, figure out how to measure for this. Oddly enough, our first stop is actually the width of the strap. We're going to use an 1/8 inch flat chisel. It's one of my favorites. We can go with diamonds, absolutely, and manipulate the width between our tines, but let's keep it easy. So what I want to do here is I'm going to work in 1/4 inch increments. Here's why. So with a 1 inch strap, I'm going to drop in 4 chisel holes. What I want on my main body is 6 holes. So therefore, when I drop that in, I'm sewing across, but at the same time, I'm securing each side of my strap. So for a 1 inch, I've got 4 chisel holes on the width of the strap, 6 on my main body. When we jump down to a 3/4 inch, I'm going to jump down to 5 chisel marks on my main body, 3 on my strap. So therefore, I'm secured again. Now, when we get down to a 1/2 inch, I try not to go this little. In fact, I'm going to reserve this for my 22s alone because that's not much strap. We drop in 2 1/8 inch tines. Now we're down to actually only half the leather holding this together. But with that, I'm going to go 2 on my strap, 4 on my main body, so therefore again, we're secured in. Okay, let's look at length. What a mess. Well, actually, I'm giving you measurements here. I've double checked everything just to make sure I'm giving you the right information. But this is the point. Let's make a test strip. Let's take the weight of leather we're going to use for the gun belt and the weight we're going to use for our strap. Let's test it. So with this, I know 1 3/8 over 3/4 inch. I'll explain that. 1 3/8 is my spread on my strap. 3/4 inch is my spread on my main body. So once we get that figured out, let's transfer that over to some of our plastic sheeting. So 45. I know exactly what shell this is for. So right here, 3 1/4, that's the standard width on one of my gun belts. There's our 3/4 spread, and on our strap, there's our 1 3/8 inch spread. Cool, that makes it very easy. Now, I only have 5 calibers here, but this will at least get you started in the right direction if you have a caliber I'm not going to mention here. So on a 45, 1 3/8 on our strap, 3/4 on our body, or 3.49 and 19.05. When we jump down to a 9mm, now we're down to a 1 1/4 over 5/8, or 3.17 over 15.87. Now, when we jump down to a 380, very small difference between the 9 and the 380. So I'm going to drop this down to 1/8 of an inch, or 1 1/8 over 5/8, 2.85, 15.87. Now, standard 12 gauge shotgun, 2 1/4 for my strap, 1 inch for my body spread, 5.71 to 5.4. Now, on our 22s, I've actually dropped down to a 3 to 4 ounce for my strap. This is a little bit difficult, and in all honesty, it's not my best way to go. So with that, we talked about using our simple oblong. Let's go with that for our 22s. They're going to be snug, very few measurements, and in fact, we're just dropping in 2 rivets, and that looks good. All right, let's step over to our pounding table because there's one more piece of help. We can wet form these. Now, I typically will wet form when I'm wet with dye. Just saves a whole step, but it's a little bit messier. So for right now, we're just going to use some water. Now, I hate to even bring these out because you can tell I've been using these to wet form leather for years. But all I need to do, I don't have to get a full-on form. I just need to bend that around enough to where it's going to help me when I go to sew these down. So therefore, I can wet form those lightly, let that dry, then they're ready to sew on. The one thing I don't want to do is sew wet. So let's let that dry completely. But at the same time, if I'm going to wet this already, let's drop in some cool little shape or design on that. That's got a little star on it. Now that it's measured out, we know exactly where that star is going to land. We didn't go into every caliber. There's so many out there, both common and obscure. But I hope it's enough information to get you started down the right road. A good jumping off point. But another point here, test, test, test. That's exactly right. Throughout our projects, we always have those steps that we're really not sure how it's going to come out. Well, let's test it. Then we go into that project with full confidence, knowing exactly what it's going to look like. Well, I hope this is good information for you. Thanks for taking time to watch The Leather Element. Good luck with your bullet loops.